Hey YouTube family, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Alright, so today I'm going to talk to you about the 3 questions you must ask yourself in order to achieve the life of your ultimate fantasy. Before we get into those 3 questions, I'm going to talk about, we're just going to go over once again some basics about the assumptions that you have about yourself, about who we are, what your relationship is with the universe. Because if you don't understand those, or if there is a disconnect there, then you're going to end up unhappy to some degree. So the good news is that the fix to going from absolute, utter, horrible misery to complete, total, in crazy bliss, happiness, is a very simple shift. And it starts with understanding the basics. If you don't understand the basics, it won't matter. It won't matter how hard you try, you won't accomplish your goals. You will sabotage yourself without even realizing it. So we're going to talk about that. So this is going to be another video in the Manifestation Mastery course. And so as always, what I do here is I give out an explanation. Probably the most important part is the explanation. And then in the second video, I will give you the techniques that you need that will simply create whatever it is we're talking about. In this case, the 3 questions you need to ask yourself in order to create your perfect fantasy life. So, you're going to watch this all the way through, then you're going to go to thunderwizard.com. Normally, when you go to thunderwizard.com, you have to subscribe in order to see the second video in the series, but since we're still having COVID lockdown stuff, I'm not going to require that. You help the channel a lot if you subscribe, and I appreciate it. It allows me to continue to do this work. But I understand that things are tough for a lot of people. So you're going to get a freebie today. You're going to get this video, and you're going to get the answer to the questions we're going to talk about in the second video, which you will go to thunderwizard.com to watch. But first, do not go there yet. I know some of you want to click and go there now. What are the 3 questions? Don't do that, because you're going to miss out. If you don't know the basics, if you don't understand the foundation for what I'm about to teach you, it won't work. Okay, so you got to watch this video all the way through. All right, now let's get started. So before we get started, let me just explain to you. You are destined to have the absolute, utter fantasy you could ever possibly imagine. You are destined for it. It is guaranteed to you if you simply know how to naturally align yourself to yourself and to the universe. It happens automatically. But we live in a society where we have been taught, actually now for a couple thousand years, we have been taught to go completely contrary to our natural inborn instincts when it comes to ourselves and when it comes to having happiness and joy. And as I said before, if you understand the basics, then it's incredibly simple. In fact, it's automatic. I've gotten to the place now where my life does this for me automatically. It takes work, but I'm happy to do it. And it takes constant vigilance to keep reminding myself. In fact, I do it on a daily basis, especially when I'm looking to gain more in my life, or to make an evolution, or to change, or if I know that there's something else that I want in my life. I automatically ask myself these 3 questions. And sometimes just answering the questions and being conscious of the true answers to the questions automatically gives me what I want. That's how simple it is. The hard part is understanding that you may be completely programmed in the opposite way. And it's very simple. We live in a society where Our society wants to make us into peons, make us into sheep, because we live in a giant machine. Now, especially now, if you're watching this, in 2020, and hopefully if you're watching it in 2021, this is no longer the case. Let's hope so. But if you're watching it in 2020, then you know that that machine has a lot of problems now because we have this COVID thing. Whether or not you believe COVID is real, I don't want to get into that argument with you. You will agree with me no matter what side of any of this debate you're on. This whole COVID thing, real or not, has put a complete, total monkey wrench into the machine. People have lost their jobs. You can't live normally. You can't, it's a real giant pain in the rear end. So, we have been programmed to be cogs in the machine. If you are a cog in the machine, you have to see yourself as a small little being in a giant machine. You have to see yourself as somebody who has to work to get what you want. You have to see yourself as somebody who has to be given permission by the powers that be in order to get what you want. On a spiritual level, this came about through monotheist dualism, which said that your job is to carry your cross and do God's will. Bear in mind, do you know what the word carry your cross means? It means carry on your back the instrument of your death. There's nothing spiritual about that. Carry your cross. What did that come from? It came from the mythology of Jesus, who was condemned to death for being a good person, and he had to carry on his back the tool of his torture and death. So there's nothing at all spiritual about carrying your cross. This is part of the imperial mindset that wants to make you a helpless victim. So what that means is, whether you're religious or not, whether you were born religious or not, you still have been imprinted with this carry your cross mentality, which means that when it comes to manifesting, you think that you have to do something external. You think you have to push to get the universe to give you what you want. You may have to, you come up with some magical spell or some other thing, or maybe you have to do, cheat on your taxes, or you have to come up with some way to squeeze the universe to give you the money and the joy and all the things that you want. You've been programmed to think this way. From the moment you're born, your parents did it, they didn't mean to. Your parents told you how to do that, and then you went to school and they taught you how to think that way. If you went to church, they definitely taught you that, or temple or mosque or whatever, same thing. They're telling you God's up here, you're down here, you're a piece of crap. You better get God to love you, because if not, you're going to hell forever, right? So whether you consciously know that or not, you've been programmed to think this way. So that's the first thing you need to understand. You have been programmed to think completely opposite of what your instincts are and how the universe naturally works. So let me tell you how the universe does work. If you followed me before, you've heard this. If not, you need to hear this. So listen very carefully. Come back and watch this video over and over again so you can get yourself de-hypnotized. Because that's the thing about hypnotism. You can tell somebody the truth and they might hear it for a second, but if they're hypnotized, their unconscious, programming will throw them right back into it. Okay? So that's why it's really important to keep watching these videos, sometimes over and over again. So here's what really happens. You are a human being who has a soul, an infinite spiritual essence and energy, a spiritual energy that lives within you. You are not this physical body. You have identified with it, and you must identify with it. You must keep a healthy body, and you must identify with it. Otherwise, you can't interface with three-dimensional reality. So even though you must identify with it in order to get what you want out of life, be healthy. Don't run away from the body. Don't run away from your physical needs and desires. But understand that you are not these things, that there is something in you that's even beyond that, and that is your soul. So, you live in three-dimensional reality if you have a physical body. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you are watching it through your physical eyeballs, and you do have a physical body. You have a three-dimensional physical body. You live in three-dimensional space-time. It's a limited bubble of reality that we have chosen to live in. Please forget all of that nonsense about you've been forced to come here. That's part of the programming. So those of you who believe that there are evil beings up there, that you've been forced to live in this horrible life, even though, and I'm not taking away whatever misery or challenges you may have, we're going to fix those but when we get to the second video. Trust me, we're going to fix that. But if you are absolutely of the belief that there are archons of light up there who are deceiving you and keeping you trapped in this horrible reincarnation, that's part of the conspiracy to make you part of the machine. So these people who've created this empire also created a religion that would keep you as a cog in the machine. So get rid of that. The reality is that you, in your essence, are immortal, you are omniscient, you are omnipresent, and you are omnipowerful in your soul state before you become human. Now, in that state, you are not limited by time and space. You are not limited by three dimensions. You live in the past, the present, and the future because there is no such thing as time. Anything that you think of magically, you experience, you are in a continuous state of bliss. The essence of your soul is pure joy. Now, if you aren't able to tap into this pure joy, don't worry about it. It's very common. It just means that you have been separated from the awareness of your true essence. And that is part of the fun. Part of the challenge is to learn how to get back in touch with that. So if you're living in misery and poverty and pain and sickness and all that, it just means you've adopted an incorrect assumption about yourself. So it is a very simple fix. There might be some challenges to it, but it's a very simple fix. It starts with indoctrinating yourself in who you truly are. All right? So I know for a fact that our souls aren't limited by three-dimensional space-time. And we can't understand what that's like now because what your soul has chosen to do when it incarnates, it takes its immense, infinite aspect of itself and it puts itself inside of this human body. Now, as you are forming in the womb and as you are an infant and a toddler, you are learning how to integrate your soul, which is not part of space-time, into this nervous system, into this brain, into three-dimensional space-time. Actually, infants are always sort of in and out of that. Their soul is learning to get accustomed to the nervous system in the brain. Your brain is a computer. It's the hardware. Within your brain is software. In fact, I'm putting software into your brain right now. I'm teaching you how to go back to your original programming, which is a software. So you've got this brain in here, which is the hardware, computer, and the software, and your soul learns that in order to stay in the body, it has to then interface through the brain and through the eyes and through the senses, through the spinal column. Because that's how it then learns how to be in three-dimensional space-time. If the soul becomes disconnected, then it no longer can function in three-dimensional space-time anymore. That's when souls can get lost, etc., etc. But what it wants to do is it wants to integrate itself with this hardware that we call the human body so that it can then experience its joy, which is its essence, through the physical three-dimensional world. For instance, what I love most in life is I love surfing. It's just such an amazing, magical thing. There's these these waves of energy that you can't see. But if you put it into this liquid medium, it creates these things called waves. And when the waves come up on shore, they do this magical thing where they turn into these little pipes of water that move, and you can take these things, these boards, and you can ride and stand on top of it on this invisible wave in this medium of water, and it's just the most amazing, magical thing I've ever experienced. I would not be able to have that much fun if I was an infinite soul, because I wouldn't be able to interface with three-dimensional space-time. I would be beyond it. So in order to have fun, my soul in this life said, I want to put myself in this physical body so that I can go and have fun and surf those waves. That's why I've completely dedicated my life to doing that. And everything that I do is to give me the ability to live the life that I want, which is exactly what I have. I live at the moment, I'm living in a 3-story, 3-bedroom house all by myself in the rainforest, right across from the beach. The beach is perfect. It's not tropical, and it's not, it's semi-tropical. And there's this forest all over the place, and there's this empty beach that goes on for miles in every direction. And I get to surf these perfect waves, sometimes, most of the time, completely by myself. Nobody else out there. Now, that's a big deal, to have perfect waves, perfect weather, nature around you, and yet I can still go into the town here and get everything that I need, and all the comforts of life. I have that. It is my perfect fantasy. And the reason why I have that perfect fantasy is because I've understood what I'm teaching you now. That it is your destiny to simply think about what you want and have it manifest in your life. That is your destiny. If that's not happening for you, it means that you have been programmed wrong. You've chosen to believe a false program, and you are following the rules of that false program. Okay? So when we get to the next video, I'm going to talk to you about, again, the 3 questions you must ask yourself. This is what I do with myself every time I want to upgrade my life. And you can have absolutely everything that you want. All right, so here you got the basics now. You're this infinite soul whose essence is pure joy, and you have chosen to put yourself into 3-dimensional space-time. In order to interface with 3-dimensional space-time, you have chosen to incarnate into this physical body that has this hardware and the software and this nervous system, and you have to completely identify with your physical body in order to be able to have fun in this 3-dimensional space-time that we call planet Earth. Okay? Do you understand that? And by the way, if you are physically unwell, same thing. There's a disconnect. If you can get connected to your soul and connected to your true essence and how things work, you can heal yourself, because it is your destiny to be healthy, happy, prosperous, and say to yourself, is there anything else I want in life? No, I have everything I want. If when I ask you, is there anything else that you could do to make your life better? If you have, yeah, then you're not a bad person. It's just you've learned the wrong information. Okay? So now let's get to the obvious question, which people ask me all the time, which is, if my soul is infinite and if I've chosen to be here, how come, the long list of why their life is so horrible, or worse yet, they don't own it, they talk about other people. What about the poor babies born in third world countries that have to, how can I have chose to come here to this horrible place? Well, if you're living like that, it's because you are actually programmed to believe that you don't deserve happiness. So we have to once again come back to the idea that you have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. You also have a subconscious mind, but we won't talk about that today. Most people, when they say subconscious, they mean unconscious. You have a conscious mind and your unconscious mind. Now, most people who are miserable are not conscious of the conflict going on in their unconscious mind. I just recently experienced this again with somebody that I know. I won't get into too much detail because they haven't given me permission to talk about their life, but short answer is, when you ask this person, what do you want? They say, I don't know. I just don't want anything. I'm just tired all the time and I sleep and, I just don't have any motivation in life. Now, this is somebody who's actually chronically depressed. Depression doesn't mean you're sad. It means that you're numb. And it means that you have really serious conflict and shame, self-directed shame going on underneath your conscious mind. But consciously, all you know is that you're tired and you can't seem to get anything done, and maybe you're sick all the time, and you just, and when I ask what it is that you want, I don't really want anything. This is somebody who's going through classical depression. One of my favorite definitions of depression is not knowing a future for yourself, not being able to see a future for yourself. Now, the only way that you can't see a future for yourself is if you are not in contact with your soul, because your soul is here for one reason only. It is here to experience its own joy through the very specific desire that it carries with it. So your soul, by the way, this is one of the problems with the law of attraction, is that the law of attraction teaches that you can have whatever you want, whatever you think about you have, which means it's arbitrary. So if you think about, I want a big house, you'll get a big house, whether you really want it or not. If you think about something negative, then something negative will happen, whether you want it or not. It means they're trying to tell you that the universe is arbitrary, and it just mirrors back to you whatever it is that you think. And that's not how it works. The way it works is that the universe is in this three-dimensional bubble, this three-dimensional space-time bubble. That bubble is conscious. It is filled with life force energy. You created it. You created it because you knew you wanted to go and experience this three-dimensional video game called life, and you wanted to take all of this bliss and this joy that you had, which is infinite, and you wanted to put it into a specific thing because it's fun to surf. It's fun. I can't do that if I'm a disembodied spirit. I can't. I have to be a physical person to be able to do it. So I created this three-dimensional space-time. I created this perfect area where I live in a place where it's a first world country and people speak English, and yet it's this huge continent that has these empty beaches that go on forever, and there's this rainforest and this jungle and these parrots and these birds that I walk through the jungle to go surfing by myself, and sea turtles and all that. I created all that because I literally can't think of anything better than this. It's beyond my wildest dreams, and I'm living it. That's because that's what my soul said it wanted. So it created it. So if you're not living in that, it means that you are not connected to what your soul wants. And so there's a place in this world that is exactly beyond your wildest dreams because you created it. And you're not living there right now because you've got some false understandings about yourself. So what ends up happening is that we get programmed to think, first of all, think that we're limited, that we're small, that we're these tiny little beings, that we don't deserve to be naturally happy and joyous, that we either have to earn it by being a good person or by carrying your cross or whatever it is, or you have to be, somebody who gives to society. So I can't spend my whole life surfing. I have to work in some factory somewhere, wear a tie. I did that for years. And I was a salesman. There was a while when I was an actor, and what I did for a living, I did a bunch of things, but one of the things I did is I was a salesman. And I would go and sit in an office with a tie, and I had my cubicle and I had my phone, back before cell phones. And I would dial a bunch of numbers and I would sell people stuff. And I was always be number 2 salesman for some reason, never number 1, but I was always end up being number 2 salesman. And I'd drive home at the end of that, 6 or 8 hour day, my head throbbing because I'm trying to, force people to buy stuff that they don't need or they don't want. And I'd made whatever it is that I made that day, which would have made me on paper a successful person. I went and worked a job and I wore a tie and I made money. And then I'd drive home every day at sunset. And it was one of the most saddest things. I would see these people out there in the ocean surfing at sunset on my favorite surf beach, and I'd drive right past it, and I would go, those people are living today, and I just threw my life in the toilet. And I was miserable. But that's what you did. You had a job and you had a career, and you have to do that. You can't just go around, spend your life surfing all day. You have to blah, blah. But you know what? That's totally false. You can. You can spend your whole life surfing or whatever it is that you do. Whatever it is that you have that's fun for you. Playing golf, riding horses, hiking, backpacking, mountain climbing, knitting. I don't care what it is. Whatever it is that gives you the greatest joy, you can do that for the rest of your life, and you can be paid a ton of money to create that lifestyle, if that's what you need. It does take money to be a surfer, because most of the real estate that you have to rent or buy is usually expensive if you want to be next to beautiful beaches with good waves. But I don't care about that. There have been times in my life where there was a period where on my bucket list what I wanted to do was to live in the mountains and in the forest, far away from people, and I did that. I lived in northern Idaho on literally the edge. I was the last house on that 20-mile dirt road that had electricity. I had to get my internet through satellite dish, and there was a sign in my yard that said, National Forest Boundary, and then there was a sign right there, right past the driveway to my cabin in the middle of the woods, that said, beware grizzly bears. And I would sit in my backyard next to this rushing stream that came down from the Selkirk Mountains, which is the most natural, untouched wilderness in the lower 48. And bald eagles would fly overhead, and moose would walk through my backyard. And thankfully I didn't see any grizzly bears, but I saw all kinds of other animals and deer and elk. And I mean, it was just wow. And it cost me almost nothing. So that was a fantasy that my soul wanted to check that off. And it didn't cost me a whole hell of a lot. So the point is that there's a perfect place for you that you will be given the resources to live in. If you're not living it, it means that you are following a wrong program. You are buying into the idea that you're limited, that you're tiny, that you're miserable, that you're sinful. If you believe that you've been brought here because you have karma and you have to pay it off, or that there are beings that want to suck the life out of you and they're forcing you to come down here and they're lying to you, and well, that's because you've been taught to believe that. It's real simple. Stop believing it. May not be easy for you because you'll have an emotional attachment. We're going to get to that. What's the biggest block, maybe I should have called it the biggest block to, living your perfect life. But the biggest block is when you have an unconscious emotional attachment to being miserable. Now, everybody listening to me is going to go, of course I'm not. You don't understand. I'm a victim of circumstance. I know. I know that on a conscious level you do not believe that. But I guarantee you it's the case. Because this is a spiritual law. You are an infinite being of joy whose destiny is to have the universe treat you like God and give you everything that you want so you can live this video game and have the most fun possible. It is a spiritual law. It cannot be broken. The only way is if you have chosen to adopt a different belief, and then what ends up happening is that you believe in order to be a good person, you buy into false beliefs. Christians who think that they have to carry their cross. They buy into that because they think that's what a good person does. They believe that's what's going to get God to love them. So they believe in that. If you try and tell them, no, you can have tons of money and be proud of yourself and think that you're an amazing person. God forbid you tell a Christian that you're God, you created the universe. Blasphemy! That's the devil. You're going to go to hell for saying that. They have a strong emotional attachment to being limited and being full of shame. What usually happens is that usually it's your mother or your father. Usually it's your mother, though. Your mother teaches you something. Because as an infant, part of the way this works is, ideally, your mother is also connected to her joy and to her soul. So when you are born, your mother naturally starts to reflect back to you your infinite joyful essence. And you learn to, in order to please mommy is happy when I'm happy. So I start doing the things that make me happy. That makes mommy happy. That's built in. That's built into this computer in our brains. But it goes off the assumption that your parents are spiritually and emotionally healthy. But if they're not, it means they're filled with self-hatred and shame, which means that they see that in you. They project that onto you. When you start to be a happy, this happened with me. My mom did this. I was a happy little kid. Up until I was 4 years old, I was a really happy, bright, shiny little kid. But because of the way my mom didn't want me to grow up. She wanted me to stay 4 years old so she could play with me forever. But then when I turned 5, she got really hurt because I started having my own friends and I started creating my own identity. And then my mom flipped on me and started punishing me for no reason. I got the feeling very quick that I wasn't allowed to be happy. I wasn't allowed to have my own identity. Now, I didn't hold on to that consciously. It was stuffed into the programming in my unconscious mind. So, 25 years later, when I'm 30 years old and I'm on the verge, and I was on the verge of becoming a very famous stand-up comedian. I was on the verge of becoming a famous Hollywood actor. I sabotaged all of it without realizing it. If you were to talk to me back then, I would have told you that, no, you don't understand Hollywood this and Hollywood that, and the deck was stacked against me. I did it to myself. And I did it because on an unconscious level, I had an emotional attachment to pleasing my mother. And my mother had given me the feeling that if I wanted her love, I had to be not successful, at best mediocre. If I was mediocre, she'd love me. If I stood out and was, very powerful, she would shame me for it. I learned it consciously when I was in college, and I went and brought them to, I was an undergraduate and I had gotten into the main stage. I got to be like the lead in a main stage production, which they didn't do. They only gave that to graduate students, but because I was so talented, they gave it to me. My parents were there, and as I'm putting my makeup on in the green room, getting ready to go on, I hear the dean of the department walk down the hall and say, "You're Michael Denney's parents? You should be so proud of him. He is the most talented actor we've ever blah, 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 blah." And I thought, that's it. Now they know they're going to see it. First thing that my mom says is, "So why do you do it? Is it for the applause?" It became very apparent to me I was breaking the rules. So consciously I'm thinking, screw them, I'm going to be successful. But what ended up happening is that on an unconscious level, the little 4-year-old in me who wants mom's love and approval started manifesting all of these almosts. So whoever it was in your life, maybe it is your mother and your father and your church and your school teacher. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's everybody who's telling you, you better not be something special. You better not be happy in this life, because if you are, then you're a bad person. You're going to go to hell. Whatever it is, it's in your unconscious mind. Now, the good news is you don't have to figure all that out. I'm going to explain to you in the next video how you can instantly become conscious of all those things. But the main thing you need to understand is that you must be willing to let go of your emotional attachment to being miserable. I just saw this recently with a friend of mine, as I said. From my looking at it, I think he's chronically depressed. When I ask him, what is it that you want in life? He says, I don't want anything. I just kind of want to lie around and I can't really think of anything. I start to try and help him in this process, but because I'm not his teacher, right? He hasn't asked for my help, but I try and help him. And the resistance comes up and he gets angry with me. And the feeling that he gets is that he thinks I'm telling him he's a screw up because he's not happy. He thinks I'm telling him he's a screw up because he hasn't done what I've done, which is to fearlessly go after everything that I want. And that's not, of course, not at all what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say to him is that all you have to do is become conscious of what makes you happy. And if you can do that, just go do it. The universe will give you everything you want, because he says the same thing everybody else says, which is, well, where am I going to get the money? I have to work a such and such job to get the money, and then I can go live my dreams. But I can't do that, can I? Because COVID, and because this, and I can't. When I try to explain to him, no, you don't understand, the universe loves you and wants to give you money, he starts getting angry. Now again, he's not my student, so he hasn't asked me to take him through the process. You've come onto my channel, so hopefully you're willing to allow me to take you through the process. But I want you to become aware. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 questions to ask yourself so you can become aware of what that programming is. And again, it's very simple. It's extremely simple. I've given you the basics. You are God. Your essence is joy. You are an infinite being that is not bound by space-time. You've chosen to be bound by 3-dimensional space-time and live in this human body, and to identify with the nervous system and the brain so that you can interact. This is your 3D glasses right here. This whole thing, this whole apparatus right here, and the spinal cord that goes along with it is your 3D glasses that allows you to be part of this virtual reality. You understand that? You understand that you designed your virtual reality to have consciousness. You've programmed it to know what your soul desire is, so that when you become conscious and you go, what I want is this, it goes, yes, and gives you the resources to achieve it. Accept that, even if you're not in it yet, even if you're miserable and you can't possibly see how you could have it, accept that. Just on faith, accept that. And then in the next video, I'm going to tell you the 3 questions you need in order to activate it. To activate the universe to then give you everything that you want. But you must be willing to accept that if you are miserable and you don't have what you want in your life, it is because you are unconsciously, you're maybe not even aware of it up here, but unconsciously, you are very strongly emotionally attached to the idea that you don't deserve to have what you want, and you will defend that. In fact, part of you is going to get angry with me. So listen for that. Part of you is going to get angry with me when I start telling you what to do and how you can fix it. You're going to want to tell me, no, I'm a victim of circumstance. No, the archons have brought me here and they've lied to me. No, you don't understand the Illuminati. No, you don't understand aliens and the Saturn moon matrix are forcing me to. You're going to really get upset and you're going to want to hold on to that. The next 3 questions, if you listen to them and if you allow them to take you where I want them to take you, you can break the spell. Okay? So that's what we're going to do next. You go to thunderwizard.com and you're going to look for, again, the title of this video again, which is the 3 questions you must ask in order to live your perfect fantasy life. And this time you're not going to have to subscribe. Normally you have to subscribe, but I'm waiving that subscription for this video because of, everybody's having a hard time with the lockdown thing. By the way, lockdown.thunderwizard.com, I'm giving away $3,214 worth. All of my video teachings and certifications. The only thing that you pay for is working with me on a one-on-one basis for a couple of hours, where I give you some special things involved in that. And you'll see it, if you go watch the video, you know what I'm talking about. Thunderwizard.com. If you like this second video I'm going to put up there and you want more of those, you can subscribe at whatever level you want. You can work with me personally on a monthly or twice a month basis. You can also go to courses.thunderwizard.com and see my books and DVDs, and of course subscribe and hit the bell button so you know when I've uploaded a video and if I'm doing a live Q&A. All right, so I'm going to see you over at thunderwizard.com, and you're going to click on the 3 questions you must ask in order to live your perfect fantasy life. All right, I'll see you over there.